I stopped by my wife Rachel's office just to give her a small surprise. For the past 6 months, ever since my daughter Sophie disappeared, there hasn't been any laughter left in our home. I thought a bouquet of flowers and a quick hug at her workplace might be enough to keep us both from completely falling apart. But the moment I stepped into her office, I saw something that made my heart drop straight into my stomach. A gold-plated pen engraved with the name Sophie. I had given that pen to my daughter for her birthday. She carried it everywhere like a lucky charm, and now it was lying right there on Rachel's desk. I picked it up, about to ask myself why, when I heard a very soft click. The bookshelf behind me trembled slightly. Then a section of the wall slid aside, revealing a dark opening that felt as cold as the mouth of a cellar. I froze, because if Sophie's pen was the key, then whatever was hidden behind that wall might be the answer I both feared and desperately needed. I'm not telling this story just to shock you for a moment before you scroll away. I'm telling it because some secrets aren't hiding out in the world. Sometimes they're hidden right inside the office of the person you trust the most. If you've made it this far, comment where you're watching from. I might change a few small details to protect real people, but the lesson stays the same. When an object that once seemed harmless suddenly becomes a key, it means someone has been planning the script for a very long time. And from the moment that wall slid open behind me, I understood one thing. Sophie's disappearance was no longer an accident or some mystery out there somewhere. The truth might be right here in this building directly beneath my feet. And if Rachel was truly innocent, then why was Sophie's pen sitting on her desk? And why did it open a hidden door? My name is Daniel Dan Carter. For the past 6 months, my life has had only one purpose: finding Sophie. The police call it a difficult missing person case. The neighbors have gradually stopped asking questions. And me? I live like the blood has been drained out of me, waking up every day with the same question. Where is my daughter? Rachel is different. She still goes to work every day, still answers phone calls, still says things like, "Everything will be okay," as if she's reading from a script. I used to think that was just her way of holding herself together. Honestly, I was grateful that at least one of us was still standing. Remind both of us that we were still a family even if Sophie hadn't come home yet. But when the wall slid open with that quiet click, every memory from the past 6 months suddenly changed color. I stood there in front of that dark opening, and for the first time, I asked myself something I had never dared to think before. If Sophie didn't disappear somewhere out there, could it be that she had been hidden close to us from the very beginning? I pushed open the glass door and stepped into the lobby. Everything was spotless and brightly lit, the kind of office people instinctively trust as safe. But the moment I walked in, something already felt wrong. The receptionist looked up at me, then paused for half a second. Not the kind of pause you make when greeting a familiar visitor, but the kind that happens when someone feels caught off guard. Her eyes flicked quickly toward the hallway leading to the executive offices before she forced a smile. "Are you looking for Rachel?" she asked. "I'm her husband," I replied. The receptionist swallowed. "She's in a meeting. I'll let her know." I nodded, but my hand tightened around the bouquet of flowers, because if it were just a normal meeting, people don't instinctively look away like that. I told her I'd just go up myself. I had a key card to Rachel's office. The receptionist tried to stop me with a polite excuse, then hesitated and let it go, as if she didn't dare block my way. I stepped into the elevator, watching the floor numbers climb, and one feeling kept circling in my mind. I wasn't here to surprise my wife anymore. I was here to brush up against a secret someone was trying very hard to hide. I opened the door and walked into Rachel's office. The familiar scent of her perfume was in the air, and her desk was as neat as always, but something sitting right in the middle of it made me freeze. A gold-plated pen, engraved with a single name, Sophie. I recognized it instantly. It was the gift I had given her, and Sophie loved it so much she carried it everywhere. School, outings, even placing it beside her bed at night. But Sophie had been missing for 6 months. So what was the pen doing here? I looked around, as if the answer might suddenly appear on the walls. It didn't. There was only an uncomfortable silence and the unmistakable feeling that I was standing in a room that no longer belonged to the truth. I picked up the pen, my hand trembling slightly, my heart pounding, and in my mind, there was only one question. If Rachel didn't know the pen was here, then who put it on her desk? I turned the pen in my hand and noticed it felt unusually heavy, not like a normal pen. At the end there was a small groove, as if it could be unscrewed. I pressed it. No ink. Then I instinctively twisted the body of the pen, and right then I heard a very soft click, so quiet that if I hadn't been standing perfectly still, I might have missed it. The bookshelf behind me trembled slightly. I spun around. A thin seam in the wall, something I had never noticed before, suddenly became visible. Then, an entire section of the wall slid aside like a hidden door, revealing a dark opening that felt cold and hollow. It wasn't a storage room. It wasn't an emergency exit. It was a narrow passage leading downward, the smell of damp air rushing straight into my face. I stood there, frozen, still holding the pen engraved with Sophie's name, because at that moment I understood something. That pen wasn't a keepsake. It was a key. And someone had designed it so that only the right people could open this door. I stood in front of the dark passage for only a few seconds before doing what every instinct of a father told me to do. Step inside. I pulled out my phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam swept down a set of narrow stairs, over damp walls, the air thick with the smell of metal and mold like a place that had been sealed off for a very long time. Each step I took echoed softly but clearly, as if the basement swallowed every sound so no one upstairs would hear. At the bottom, I found another door, thick, soundproof, the kind of door you don't see in a normal office. My hand rested on the handle, cold against my palm. I pushed it open. Inside was a small room. A folding bed, bottles of water, packaged food, a camera mounted in the corner of the ceiling, and a single chair positioned across from the bed like something out of an interrogation room. I swallowed hard, because this wasn't a storage space. This was a place meant to hide someone. And if Sophie was still alive, then the truth was right behind this door. I swept my flashlight across the room one more time, and then I saw a figure in the corner of the bed. At first, I thought it was just a jacket or a pile of blankets crumpled in the corner, but when the beam of light touched the face, my heart nearly stopped. Sophie. She was painfully thin, her hair tangled, her eyes sunken as if she hadn't seen daylight in a long time. She flinched and shrank back, a reflex from someone who had been kept locked away for far too long. Then she looked at me, the way a person looks when they're trying to believe this isn't just a hallucination. Sophie. Sweetheart. It's Dad. Her lips trembled. A tiny sound escaped her throat, as if she were afraid even a voice might be punished. And then she broke down, crying, and ran straight into my arms. I held her tightly, and the sharp bones of her shoulders pressing under my hands nearly drove me insane. I didn't know whether to feel relief or the urge to kill someone right then and there. But one thing was certain. Sophie had never gone missing. She had been hidden, right here, inside my wife's office. Sophie clung to my shirt as if she were afraid I might disappear. I tried to keep my voice steady, but my throat felt tight. Sophie. She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. Then she spoke in broken fragments, as if every word hurt. Mom brought me here. I stood there, frozen. Sophie told me what happened. That day, Rachel had said, "Come to the office for a minute. Mom has a surprise for you." She brought Sophie into the room and handed her a drink. Soon Sophie felt dizzy, her eyes growing heavy. And when she woke up, she was already in this room. Rachel came down regularly, bringing food. And every time, she repeated the same sentence: "No one will ever find you. If you scream, I'll make your father believe you ran away." My hands clenched, heat rushing straight to my head, because in that moment I understood something terrifying. For 6 months, I had been searching for my daughter like a madman, while the truth had been sitting right beneath my wife's feet the entire time. I held Sophie in my arms, my mind torn in two. Half of me wanted to grab her and run out of there immediately. The other half wanted to storm upstairs, grab Rachel by the collar and demand, "What the hell are you?" For the past 6 months, Rachel had cried with me. She held me every night, whispering, "I'm hurting just like you." She said, maybe Sophie had been kidnapped. She told me not to give up, and I believed her. I leaned on her just to keep myself from collapsing. Now I understood. It had all been an act. I started remembering the small details I had ignored because I was too exhausted to question them. Rachel was always the one steering me toward the wrong leads. She reacted too quickly whenever I talked about bringing in more help, and she always said the same line: "Don't make this a big thing," as if she was afraid I might dig in the one place that actually mattered. I looked around the room again, the camera, the packaged food, the soundproof door. None of this could have been impulsive. This was planned. And in that moment, I made a decision. I wouldn't start screaming. I would get Sophie out safely first. Then, I would deal with Rachel with evidence. I didn't just grab Sophie and run. There was a camera in this room. And if Rachel was watching, all it would take was one phone call for security to stop me at the exit. I held Sophie close and whispered softly, "Listen to me. We're getting out of here quietly. No shouting, no running. Just do exactly what I say." I dimmed the flashlight on my phone, leaving only a faint glow. I looked up at the corner of the ceiling to find the camera's blind spot, then guided Sophie along the wall, moving slowly so our footsteps wouldn't echo. When we reached the sliding wall, I stopped and listened. The office upstairs was quiet, but I wasn't foolish enough to believe quiet meant safe. I closed the hidden door carefully, just the way it had been before, and slipped the pen into my pocket. The key needed to stay with me. I put my jacket on Sophie, pulling the hood low to hide her face and frame. Then I led her through the office, the way an assistant might walk behind a boss, head down, silent, not looking around. At that moment, I had only one goal: get out of the building before Rachel returned to her office. When we reached the parking lot, I didn't drive home right away. I sat in the car, locked the doors, kept Sophie close beside me, and asked one simple question: "Did you ever hear your mother say why?" Sophie gave a small nod. She told me Rachel used to repeat the same line over and over, almost like she was drilling it into her head. "Your father won't believe you. He'll sign the papers." I went completely still. Suddenly, the past few months replayed in my mind. Rachel pushing me to sign a few company-related documents, saying it was just for convenience, saying I was too tired to deal with things. The times she casually brought up doctors, calming medication, and that phrase she kept repeating, "You've been forgetful lately." And that's when it all clicked. Sophie hadn't been hidden because of anger or jealousy. Rachel had been building a picture. Sophie disappears, I fall apart. I get labeled unstable, easier to control. I sign papers in a haze, the assets and control slip out of my hands legally. I looked at Sophie and spoke slowly, making sure every word was clear. "Dad's not going to confront her right now. I'm going to do this the right way. Your mother isn't getting away with this." Through paperwork. I didn't take Sophie straight home. I brought her somewhere safe, someone I trust completely. Then I went back to play the exact role Rachel expected. I had to look like I was still falling apart, because if I suddenly disappeared, Rachel would know I'd discovered the truth, and she would wipe every trace clean. I went back and played the part, still confused, still broken, still trusting Rachel to guide me. And just as I expected, she started moving faster. She said I needed an evaluation, that I should get treatment, that it would be better if I signed a few documents to stabilize the company while I took time to recover. Then she brought me to the office, not to work, but into a conference room that had clearly been arranged in advance. A lawyer sat there. A doctor in a suit held a thick medical file, and a corporate representative waited with paperwork ready for me to sign. Rachel placed a pen in front of me, her voice sweet as honey. Just sign it. It's only a temporary transfer of authority. I nodded, my eyes unfocused, like a man who had lost his sense of direction. But in my jacket pocket was something they didn't know about, a recording device. And I swear at that moment, I stopped chasing the truth. I was letting them speak their own guilt out loud. In that conference room, Rachel believed she was guiding a broken husband into signing a beautiful trap. She slid the documents toward me, her voice soft and soothing, almost like a lullaby. Just sign it and everything will be fine. I only want to protect the family, protect the company, protect you. I let my hand tremble and asked one simple question, just enough to make her reveal more than she intended. What about Sophie? If she never comes back, that's when things finally become stable, right? Rachel paused for half a second, then stepped right into the hole she had dug for herself. Don't bring her up again. The more you search, the more confused you get. Just sign the papers, and everything will belong to me. You'll be taken care of. The phrase, taken care of, sounded sweet, but it was really a blade. I looked straight at Rachel, stopped the recording in my pocket, and stood up. Thank you. That's enough. I placed my phone on the table and played back the audio we had just recorded. Rachel's face drained of color. Then I said the final line, my voice cold as steel. Sophie is safe. And you? Rachel tried to keep acting, turning to the others in the room as if to say he's delusional. But this time no one rushed to defend her, because every word she had said was already captured in the recording. I opened the conference room door and gave a signal. 2 police officers stepped inside, along with a financial investigator I had already contacted earlier. I handed them the evidence directly, the recording of Rachel admitting, "Just sign, and everything will belong to me." I handed over the rest of the evidence, photos and videos of the hidden room, and Sophie's testimony. Rachel's face turned pale as she stepped back. No, this is a misunderstanding. One of the officers clearly read out the charges, and the handcuffs snapped shut around her wrists, right there in front of the people who had been waiting for me to sign those papers. The representatives in the conference room went completely silent because they understood they had just become part of a case involving unlawful confinement and fraud. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt one thing: relief. Relief that, finally, I had pulled Sophie out of the darkness. And from that day on, I swore something to myself. No one would ever again use paperwork as a weapon to bury my family alive. But after Rachel was handcuffed and taken away, I thought I would feel instant peace. I didn't. I just felt numb. Sophie was taken in for a medical evaluation. The doctors said she was severely sleep-deprived, malnourished, and showed signs of being given sedative drugs, the kind used to keep someone groggy so they don't resist and can't keep track of time. She kept flinching every time a door closed, the kind of reflex you see in someone who has spent too long in a soundproof room. As for me, I had to step into the ugliest part of it all: the motive. The financial investigation uncovered a whole chain of documents Rachel had prepared: transfer of control papers, power of attorney forms, even psychological assessment records meant to label me as mentally unstable. She hadn't just hidden Sophie, recording my. She had used Sophie like a weapon against my mind, pushing me toward collapse so I would sign the papers in a haze. And that's when I understood something clearly. Rachel hadn't lost her way because of emotions. She had calculated everything. But she forgot one thing. I might collapse when my child is gone, but I won't stay down forever. I will pull Sophie back, and I will drag the truth into the light with her. A few weeks later, everything moved from emotions to paperwork. Rachel was charged with unlawful confinement, conspiracy to seize assets, and document fraud. The hidden room beneath the office became undeniable evidence. The camera, the soundproof door, the schedule for bringing food, every detail pointed to the same conclusion. This wasn't impulsive. It was a plan. Sophie began therapy. She didn't recover overnight, but little by little things changed. Each day she slept a little deeper, startled a little less when a door closed. As for me, I had to rebuild everything. I locked down accounts, changed access permissions, reviewed every company document, and learned how to live without comforting myself with the lie. My wife could never do something like this. The lesson I took from all of it was bitter but painfully real. The most dangerous kind of betrayal comes from the person standing closest to you, the one who uses exactly what you trust most, family, to break you. From now on, I don't live in fear. I live in clarity. After the trial, I thought everything was finally over. But the truth is, over only means you're allowed to breathe again. It doesn't mean the story stops there. I had to go through detox because of the medications Rachel had secretly been giving me during the months Sophie was missing. There were times my mind felt like it was wrapped in fog, but thankfully it's been clearing little by little. Sophie, meanwhile, continued therapy. She was sleeping better now, and the way she startled at the sound of doors closing was slowly fading. One late afternoon, the two of us were sitting out on the porch, the sky washed in a soft golden light. Sophie stayed quiet for a long time before finally speaking. "Dad, there's something I need to show you." She went inside and came back with an old leather-bound notebook, a journal that had belonged to her biological mother. Sophie told me she had found it in the attic just before everything happened. Inside a box of old belongings Rachel always avoided talking about. I opened it, and the more I read, the colder I felt. Inside the journal were entries that made my blood run cold. Sophie's mother had written that someone had started getting close to the family at just the right time. She had noticed financial records that didn't quite add up, and in one entry, she left a line that read like a warning: "If something happens to me, don't trust the person standing next to you." That's when it hit me. Rachel hadn't just hidden Sophie. She might have started this plan years ago. The journal made one thing painfully clear. Rachel didn't suddenly become a monster during the 6 months Sophie was missing. She had been laying the groundwork for a long time. I took the journal to my lawyer and an independent investigator. Together, we started rebuilding the timeline around Sophie's mother's death. The date she was admitted to the hospital, who signed the paperwork, which doctor was in charge, what medications were prescribed, and most importantly, who had been standing beside the family during those final weeks. The journal mentioned details I had never paid attention to before. There were several times Sophie's mother wrote that she felt a strange dizziness always right after taking vitamins someone else had handed her. There were also medical and insurance charges that appeared to have been altered at the last minute. And one name kept appearing throughout the notes: a so-called family friend who showed up at exactly the right moments and was always a little too eager to help. Then, Sophie said something that sent a chill straight down my spine. "Dad, Mom once told me that if she died and you married Rachel, I should be careful." I sat there, frozen, because at that moment, the story stopped being just, "Rachel kidnapped my daughter." It could be something much darker. Rachel may have entered my family with a plan from the very beginning, and Sophie became the next target when she started getting too close to the truth. I didn't run off looking for revenge like a fool. I did one thing instead. I reopened the records. The investigator was blunt. If we wanted to challenge the circumstances around Sophie's mother's death, we had to find the point where something had been manipulated, the medication, the insurance paperwork, or the signatures. So we requested warrants to retrieve the prescription history and hospital hallway camera footage, the original insurance files along with the edited versions, and the system access logs showing who opened the records and when. And then, another piece of the puzzle fell into place. There had been a staff member, some kind of advisor, someone Rachel had introduced during the time Sophie's mother was at her weakest. He had stepped in to help with the paperwork. His name kept appearing in the system logs, again and again, like footprints in wet mud. I looked at Sophie and suddenly understood why Rachel had locked her away. Sophie must have discovered that name before she disappeared. I sent everything to the police, the journal, the system logs, the financial and medical records. The investigator reviewed it all, and then said something that sent a chill through me. Dan, this isn't a woman acting on impulse. This is a woman who built a system. And in that moment, I made myself a promise. I had already pulled Sophie out of the hidden room. Now, I was going to drag the truth out of the grave. Rachel thought she had buried for good. Once the hospital records and access logs were brought into the light, Rachel had nowhere left to hide behind the line. I was just a mother trying to protect her family. The police expanded the case into a broader, organized conspiracy: medical record tampering, insurance fraud, and concealment of evidence. The investigator looked at me and said it plainly. The unlawful confinement of Sophie is already serious enough. But if her mother's journal and the signs of medical record interference hold up, then this is going to become a second criminal case. Rachel was placed in custody while the investigation expanded. The people she had introduced as helpers for the paperwork were summoned for questioning too. And for the first time, I saw something strange but satisfying. The truth was moving faster than the lies. As for Sophie, she slowly started coming back to life. She no longer stared at doors like she expected them to lock behind her. She stopped waking up in panic. Eventually she returned to school, and the smiles came back. But they were different now. They were the smiles of someone who had survived something dark, smiles with scars behind them. And I settled on one final lesson. Don't trust someone just because they stand close to you. Trust the evidence.